highly empathetic people don't usually have weak intuition. We have good intuition, but what we often have is that habit of overriding our intuition. And that is a very different problem. So what intuition actually is. Let's start by grounding this in something very specific, because intuition gets talked about in mystical terms, like it's a sixth sense, but I don't think it actually serves us, because in psychology, intuition is generally understood as rapid unconscious pattern recognition. Your brain is continuously processing information far more than what reaches conscious awareness, and it has been doing that across your entire lifetime of experience. So when you get a feeling about a person or a situation, what's often happening is that your nervous system detects something. Maybe some inconsistency, some shift in tone, some micro expression that passed in less than a second. So your conscious mind doesn't have language for it yet, but your body has already registered it. And this is why intuition so often arrives as a felt sense before it arrives as a thought. In complex situations, especially with incomplete information, intuition can actually outperform analysis. And there's also research that suggests that our bodies respond to cues, changes in heart rate, muscle tension, autonomic nervous system activation, before conscious awareness catches up. So when people say, I just had a gut feeling, there's often more happening there than we give credit for. Our gut is tracking something real. And so, big question, why empathy can work against you here? And so we tend to assume that empathy and intuition work together, that being attuned to other people would naturally make you better at reading them. In some ways, that is true. But there's a pattern that I see in people who grew up as what I call emotional containers, people who learned early to absorb, manage, make space for other people's emotional states. Empathy can actually start to function as defense against self-knowledge. So here's a concrete image of what this can look like. Your intuition says something doesn't feel right about this person. Immediately, your empathy responds, but they've been through so much. They're probably scared or traumatized. They don't mean it the way it comes out. They're doing the best they can. So your intuition spoke once. Your empathy argued for an hour, another hour, maybe a day. And what sounds like compassion in those moments is sometimes, of course, not always, compassion is super important, but sometimes it's a way of redirecting attention away from your own experience, because sitting with this doesn't feel right requires tolerating discomfort and the possibility that you might have to do something about it, like not see this person anymore. And if you were rewarded by focusing outward, that inward focus can feel like a threat sometimes. So how emotional containers learn to look away from themselves? Many of the people I work with who struggle most with trusting their intuition grew up in environments where reading other people's emotions was a survival strategy. You may have become extraordinarily skilled at monitoring other people's moods, tracking tension, anticipating small and big reactions, and read room well. That is impressive, that's awesome, but notice where attention is directed, always outward. And the question that gets practiced is, what is everyone else feeling? Not what am I feeling? And as adults, it continues. You are highly attuned to others and quietly disconnected from yourself. And when your own nervous system sends a signal, when intuition speaks, there is no habit of listening to it. Maybe there's even a belief that your own internal experience isn't the most important thing in the room. And also there's another thing. We sometimes mix intuition and anxiety. And I think that it confuses people. Intuition and anxiety can feel very similar because both show up as a sense that something is wrong, but they function very differently. Anxiety asks, what if something horrible happens? It spirals. It seeks more information, more certainty, more evidence. It gets very loud. And the more you engage with it, the louder it gets. Intuition tends to be quiet. It says something more like, no, or not this, or this doesn't work. It doesn't spiral. It lands. It is like a telegram. One way I describe it, anxiety creates urgency. Intuition creates clarity and calm. People miss their intuition because we're listening to dramatic. And intuition is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives, speaks, and if you don't catch it, if you redirect it outward or into analysis, it gets buried very quickly. And intelligence can also get in the way. In Russia, we say grief from being smart. So here's something I've noticed specifically with people who are highly analytical and intellectually oriented. They might have a belief that every significant decision should be justifiable through logic. That if you can't articulate your reasons, the feeling isn't valid. And the problem is that intuition often arrives before the evidence does. So the analytical mind starts gathering data, looking for proof, wanting to be fair, and meanwhile the nervous system has been giving the same clear answer for 6 months. So intelligence is applied in the wrong direction, towards justification rather than toward listening. Okay, so what can we do with it? Of course, we can strengthen our intuition by giving it attention. So I want to offer you some concrete things you can actually work with, because I think that we need to practice what we preach, and in general, we need to practice. So the first one is what I think of as the first response method. When you meet someone new or enter a new situation, just write down your first impression before you analyze it, before you soften it or explain it, or don't justify, don't qualify, just write it down and then come back to it months later. Most people are surprised by how accurate your initial read was when you finally let yourself look at it later. The second practice is a body check-in, and this is simple. Several times a day, ask yourself not what you're thinking, but what your body is doing. Is it relaxed or tense? Open or braced? Is it heavy or energized? Your body often has information that your intellect is still catching up to, and the more you practice asking, the more fluent you become in that body intuition language. The third one, empathy reversal. And this is particularly important for emotional containers because we're often very good at explaining other people's behavior, understanding psychology behind it, making sense of other people's behavior. But the question that often doesn't get asked is, how does this behavior actually land inside me? What does it feel like to be on the receiving end of it? That's the question that brings you back into your own experience. And the fourth is what I think of as the quiet test. When you're trying to make a decision, try imagining this. No one will ever ask you to explain this choice. No one will question it. No one needs justification. What would you choose? Many people find that their intuition becomes available more when they stop performing it for an external audience. Intuition is not mystical. It's accumulated wisdom. Thousands of experiences, relational moments, observations about how people behave and how situations unfold for you, and they're compressed into a felt sense that arrives faster than language. It doesn't mean that it's always right, of course. Nothing is 100%, but it deserves to be heard, and it's worth slowing down enough to notice what it's actually saying before you reach for the explanation that allows you to dismiss your intuition. So if you're someone who identifies as an emotional container, someone who came up learning to attune to everyone around you, your growth probably doesn't look like becoming more empathetic. You are already empathetic enough, I'm sure. The work is learning to extend some of that same quality of attention inward. Treat your own experience as worthy of the understanding that you're so readily extending to everyone else. Because intuition is not the opposite of empathy. Healthy intuition is empathy turned toward yourself. And the moment you stop explaining away every uncomfortable internal signal, you may find that your intuition is very, very present. It's been speaking to you all along. You just haven't had permission to listen to it. And if you do some of the exercises that I mentioned, please share in comments. I am fascinated by this topic and I want to do research on that at some point of time. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day. Take care.